All right, boys, it's day 10 of the order flow bootcamp. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to keep talking about absorption. I'm going to go over 4 more examples of absorption. I'm going to try to run through them quick enough so this video is not a fucking hour long, but try to run through them quick enough so that this video is not too long. But to sum it all up, we're going to go over 2 absorption continuation setups and 2 absorption reversal setups. So I used to separate these absorption continuation and absorption reversal in my playbook, and I would have 2 different playbooks for each of them. They're very similar, but they can be different. You'll see in these next few examples what I mean when I say that, but they're really the same thing, and there's not really a good reason to separate it. The only difference really is that I find absorption continuation setups kind of last a little bit longer. Like you might have a 10-15 minute period where aggression is just getting absorbed, where as reversals, a lot of the times it seems to be a lot quicker. Maybe you have 1 to 5 minutes of some absorption and the setup and everything. So like I'll just show you guys right now. Let's just talk about these next 4 examples real quick. So the first one I have for you guys is from June 16th, and this is going to be an absorption continuation setup. Like I said, so the market opened right here at 8:30 since I'm on Central Time. And just pay attention to the order flow data, pay attention to the delta, pay attention to the CVD, and you guys will probably recognize at some point that there is a ton of selling that is coming into the market, but it is not moving price lower. So you can already see it right off rip, like right here. See all this selling, see this CVD just going straight down, but price is consolidating sideways after we had a little bit of a move up off the open. I'm already reading this as aggressive sellers failing to move price down. And on top of that, you have an area of low volume, which is kind of like starting at 73. So see how the volume is building up right here. And below it, this would be an area of low volume. So at this point, basically what we're looking to see is we're looking to see this area of low volume hold and be supported. So I'm just going to continue to let this play out. And let's see if any more selling comes down here or if this thing just bursts. So in this example, notice how every single time aggressive selling comes in, it immediately gets bought back up. But on top of that, we have a major CVD divergence going on right here. And then you have all this negative delta building up on the depth of market at these prices from like 78 down to 76 is where the bulk of it's at, but even a little bit below. I don't know if any of you guys remember me ever mentioning this, but what I like to do personally is I like to wait for significant volume activity. I don't normally like putting positions on that don't have significant activity behind them. So in this case, like, yes, we definitely see the absorption setting up right here, right? And I'm not saying that this is the way you have to do it. I'm saying this is the way I like to do it most of the time. I would ideally, if you didn't get long already when this first started happening, which the real absorption really started at these prices at 77 down to like 75. So you can see that CVD is dropping off. This is where we created the initial divergence. And then everything after that is seeming to be getting scooped up. So we get a little bit of a move up, right back down, but this time the selling is very strong and it's significant. And you can see that clearly by looking at this delta candle right here. If I zoom out, you can just notice how the delta candle was bigger than everything before it, right? So this is just showing me this is significant activity. And then on top of that, looking at the CVD, notice how the CVD drops straight down. That would mean that this is very significant volume activity happening at this area. So following this, we can see despite all of this giant selling right here, price is still remaining above that area where we were divergent at. But in general, it is holding these prices where we built value or just where we consolidated at. And we are creating all of this negative delta, which is indicating that passive sellers are very active and wanting to scoop up all this aggression here. Just like every other example of absorption, to put it in very simple terms, this is just effort that is not being rewarded. There is a lot of effort from aggressive sellers here trying to move price down, and it's not going. So if you weren't long all the way back here when this really started, getting long somewhere in here, maybe it's the 78s, 79s, a good best price is below 79s, obviously, but Like I said, there's many ways you can play this. Some people like to get in as soon as they see the absorption. Some people like to wait for the other side to step in, or in this case, for buyers to really show interest and aggressively come into the market. That's more of the side I lean towards. It's all up to you, and it's up to your own risk profile and what the context is of the trade, what the risk is on the trade. It's very subjective. But the bottom line is, whenever you see effort that's not getting rewarded, there is potential there for a reversal of some sort. In this case, it's continuation, just because we had this initial move up off the open from these 67s right here. You know, roughly a 10, 11 point move up, consolidation happens, and that's why I'm calling it absorption continuation. So like this is one of those examples where this actually took place over roughly a 15, 20-minute time period, where literally after that first move, we had about 15 minutes of consolidation with sellers getting absorbed. So that's why I say they're kind of different, but you know, the general concept is the same. It's effort that's not getting rewarded. But I find that these continuation setups seem to take a little bit longer to play out. Or I should say the passive participants are absorbing the aggression for a longer period of time. That's just what I've noticed. I've seen this exact setup happen probably over like 15 to 20 times in the last year. I'm not even kidding. So this happens oft, like not often, but this happens, and it's a repeatable setup. So whatever, that's where you get in long somewhere. You get in long right here. Maybe you get in long right here. As long as you can spot effort that's not being rewarded and you can get your stop loss at a place that invalidates your trade thesis, that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't really matter when, because that's kind of more subjective. But I mean, in my opinion, the best two places in this particular setup is right here when it started, and then right here after the significant volume activity, where you can really say, all right, sellers are for sure not able to move price down. This is the most significant volume we've seen on the session, and we should get an opposite reaction to that. So obviously that happens, and we get this kickoff to a huge rally, which right here you actually see an LVN continuation setup, which we're going to go over in the next batch of setup videos. But yeah, that tends to happen a lot. So if you didn't even catch this absorption, you could have caught this LVN right here for a continuation up to the target of the day or whatever it may be. Looks like 6,100 was the main one in my opinion, but clearly that led to a nice rally, especially if you got in the initial consolidation where the absorption actually happened, which is what we're talking about. So that's the first setup. Effort that's not being rewarded. How are we spotting that? We're using the depth of market, specifically the volume profile delta column. We're identifying where there's negative delta, which would mean there is more aggression at these prices from sellers, but price is not moving down. Could also use the CVD, which is just the difference in aggression coming into the market, the literal difference of market buy orders versus market sell orders. And clearly divergent here. CVD is trending down, meaning there's more aggressive selling happening. Price is moving up. Whenever there's not effort being rewarded, these sellers right here are going to buy back their positions, which that fuels a move upward. So that's the first example. The next example is very similar. Seems like this happens a lot when we're trending. So if there's a trending market, this could be a setup that you want to really be on the lookout for. I'm just going to let this play again. So off rip, here's the open at 8:30 as always. A little bit of a move up in price. And now what we're looking for is aggressive selling. It's clearly already building up, like the CVD is moving straight down. You can see this delta starting to build up right here. So just like the last setup, this kind of sticks out at you where there's obviously more aggressive selling coming into the market, but it's not moving price down. Same exact setup. You guys can even see where we formed that area of low volume after that initial movement from the open. And then we start building value between 204 and 208. So this one actually happened a little bit quicker. You can clearly see that during this consolidation, we build up negative delta, shown by these prices over here to the right at the volume profile delta column on Bootcamp. And then we get some buying that moves price up. We create an area of low volume right here. And then this is once again another low volume continuation setup that works out perfectly for another move up. But it was really all fueled by that initial absorption right off the open. So I just showed you guys 2 days back to back that both happened in June that had the almost identical price action where we get a small move up after the open, we consolidate, a ton of selling gets absorbed, and then we move up. And then in both cases, we create an area of low volume from this aggressive buying, and then we rally off of that area of low volume to the high of the day, which obviously in this case is like 20 points, 15 points. So this is something you can be on the lookout for, specifically on trending whenever the market's looking to trend. Same thing in reverse as well. You can look for a lot of buying off the open that's not moving price up, and you're going to see the same thing happen in reverse for the sellers. So just to nail it in your guys' head, what you can look for after the session opens up is really just a ton of effort that's not being rewarded, or effort that's not being rewarded. And that's going to give you an opportunity to potentially capitalize on those people putting in the effort if they end up dumping their position off, which if they're selling, dumping their position off would be now they got to buy. If they are buying, dumping their position off would be now they got to sell. It's the same idea for every example. And obviously a lot more powerful whenever you come into the market and, like, let's just say before we opened up, we already knew we were trending upward before the session, or maybe we just bounced off a demand zone. You got to pair all of these setups with context. But yeah, these tend to look very similar and they're definitely repeatable. All right, so in this next example, this is going to be an absorption reversal where buyers get trapped, sellers step in and take control. Just your classic absorption reversal setup. I remember this one pretty well because I took it. This is kind of the rundown on what happened on the session after we opened up. So we opened up right here at 8:30, sold off pretty strong, created this area of low volume, which we already rejected right here at the 28s, got that continuation, and then we get some sort of relief bounce right here. So I'm just going to let this play out for a second. And this is basically going to be the first sign of buying really on the session. But as soon as we come up near this LVN again, it gets shut down. So we could see some passive activity here at the 325s. So these 23s filled, we got some at the 25s right here and just above. So we got passive sellers trying to get filled right here, right? Now, if I just speed this up a little bit, here goes some absorption. So you can see that Bootcamp absorption indicator going off. And if you guys want the Bootcamp absorption indicator, you got to get the Global Plus subscription. If you want a discount link, it's in my description below, so you can check that out if you want. But one thing I like to emphasize is that the Bootcamp absorption indicator isn't just going to tell you every time the market's going to reverse. It's just a way to see where aggressive participants were transacting heavier and not moving price. So in this case, it was obviously right at the fill of a passive order right here. Sometimes these passive orders will come in damn near at market price, like this one kind of did. And it's very easy to miss just looking at the heat map naked without the absorption indicator. So that's just a little preface of how I use this indicator. It's never something that I'm like, oh, absorption indicator is going off, I'm taking it short or I'm taking it long. It's never like that. But it's definitely really good at being able to see where some passive participants step in and maybe you missed it because it happened very quickly. Because like I said, a lot of these people will just limit order in at market prices. And if they're big orders, sometimes they get filled and you don't even notice it. If you're not using the absorption indicator, you can just look at the size of the bubbles. Sounds funny to say, but like if there's a huge green bubble and price didn't move up a lot, that means there was a lot of volume that transacted that didn't move price. But anyway, so now we have the absorption, right? Now we're starting to see buyers lose steam. We're seeing that passive sellers are active up here and that this aggression is starting to get halted. Just like every other reversal setup I've showed you guys, what I like to see is I like to wait for just like that. I like to wait for aggressive selling to step in just like that, and boom, I'm looking for an entry on a retest of some sort to get my stop loss just above, in this case, probably 25, maybe up to 26. So wherever I can get an entry as close as I can to that 25, 26, I am ready to put this trade on since I know sellers are interested. So what I typically like to look for is a move back up or a retest with very weak volume, or I like to look for a move up into some offers or some bids that are not able to get filled. So we'll see if that happens exactly right here. I don't really remember, but in this case, you can see how as we come up here into these offers, we're not able to even get up and touch them yet. We'll see if we do here, but I'll pay close attention to what happens at these offers right here at 25. So see how they're not transacting? I would probably be short immediately after seeing that. And on top of that, if you remember, I just said I'm placing my risk at 25 or 26. So the absorption is where I want to place my risk right above it. I'm having that as 20. I mean, over on the DOM, you can see it pretty clearly, 24.50, 24. But I'm going to give it a few points and I'm going to put it at 25 or 26. So let's just say I got short immediately after seeing the failure to fill these offers. This is just showing me that buyers are not as interested as they once were at these prices. So what you're going to see next is aggressive selling steps in and moves price down. And I like to say this all the time, but like the best reversals, they look damn near the same. Like you get the absorption and then you get some interest from the other side and then you get that retest. And this ends up selling off. And I remember my first TP on this particular trade was right here at 310. And I believe my next one was down here at 301, just above these orders. That looks like it gets filled. It will definitely get filled because I remember taking the trade. But yeah, down here is where we got all out of the trade. But that is another example of an absorption reversal setup where if you guys noticed, it's not very hard to see that it happened a lot quicker than those continuation setups where it's 15 minutes of aggression just getting scooped up by passive participants. So for the reversals, like I said, I always want to see, the first step is I need to see the absorption. So you get some absorption, you get some passive participants right here that are able to take momentum away from these buyers on this rally. And then the next step is seeing the interest from the opposing side, aggressive interest. So that was right here. We got some aggressive selling. And then step 3 is like my entry, because if step 1 and 2 happen, I'm ready to take it short. I just need to get the best price possible. And to get the best price possible, what I need to do is I need to get my entry as close as I can to where the trade thesis was developed, which in this case, looking at the depth of market, it's going to be around the 24s right here. Looking at the heat map, it's going to be, and then looking at the heat map, in my opinion, it's more up to the 25s. It's really where this buying happened right here on the CVD. So that was the first step. And then you get some interest. And then on top of that, you got a nice CVD divergence with these two highs right there. So that's another pretty good example of these absorption reversal setups that I love so much. So if the absorption setups are still a little bit confusing to you, just make sure you subscribe to my channel because I post examples like this all the time. So the more you see it, the more it's going to register in your brain and it'll make sense. But I'm going to keep nailing it in your head once again. Like the long story short is you're looking for effort that's not getting rewarded. You're looking for momentum that's getting slowed down by passive participants, followed by aggressive interest from the opposing side. And that's going to really validate the idea. So I'm going to show you guys one final example, and it's actually from today, September 2nd. And this is a trade that I took. It's actually more of a continuation setup, but nevertheless, once again, it's just me spotting aggression that is not getting rewarded. And I'm going to give you guys a little bit of context for this particular trade. So we rallied up off of demand down here at the start of the session. All right, so we had this area of low volume right here, and I was basically watching it first for a continuation setup. I missed this first bounce off of it where we got up roughly 10 points off of it, and ultimately this buying gets shut down. So after this happened, I was speculating that this LVN was going to break and that we would attempt to put in a new low of the day ultimately. So we're just going to watch this happen because it does take a little bit. All right, so this area of low volume right here breaks. We get through it, and then look at this right here. This is just like those absorption continuation setups that I was showing you in the beginning of this video, except it's flipped in reverse to the downside. So you can clearly see all of these giant green bubbles right here. So this is just aggressive buyers trying to lift the offer, but they're failing to do so. What's happening here is aggressive buyers are trying to lift the offer and they're getting stuffed by passive sellers at this. So I actually walked away from the session about 30 minutes prior to this, but I had everything still up on my chart. I come back and I look at the chart and I'm like, oh, this is obvious. This smacks me in the face. There's a ton of aggressive buying here that is not able to move price up. And it's happening right at an area of an LVN that gets disrespected. So sellers broke this LVN. So now what we do, so this would be kind of like an inverse LVN setup. Some people call this an inverse fair value gap. That's essentially what I'm seeing. So I got the location, I got the context. We've been selling off very heavily the last 2 days. And I am speculating that all of this buying right here is going to get put underwater. I mean, you can just look at the CVD. The CVD is going straight up right here, but we have literally not moved at all. So this is just a very obvious, blatant setup that was like, buyers are putting an effort here. They are not being rewarded. So if they get put underwater, I am looking to get short. So I actually took this short at 97. So right around here, after we got some selling, stop loss was roughly 3 points. And I went break even on this trade because I moved my stop loss immediately. And the reason for that is because I'm going in heavy on combines, working on combine. Now I get stopped out for break even right here, but this is just a retest of that absorption. And to be completely honest with you guys, I should have just never moved my stop loss, but I wanted to have the first trade a positive P&L for my combine since I'm going in with size and I just want to protect the account as much as I can. Definitely no reason to go break even on it, but I did. And I re-entered it as soon as I saw this little pop get shut down immediately. I re-entered again at 93 was my fill. It was actually down here. And I gave it all the way up to 96 for another 3-point stop. To be completely honest with you guys, if this wasn't on fresh combines, I would have never moved my stop loss to break even until now. For sure, I would have been break even now if I had an entry at 97. But the main point with this whole video, the main idea for this whole video is just to show you guys this is a very obvious place where buying is not getting rewarded. Like, it's very obvious. You can just look at, you don't even need an absorption indicator. I don't have the delta is kind of skewed because of my Bootcamp skipping around, so you can just ignore the delta, but there is definitely probably some huge delta on a footprint chart at these prices. Another example of effort not being rewarded at a particular area of interest. And that's all you got to look for. This is repeatable stuff. So I hope you guys got some value out of that absorption video. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe because I'm going to be posting a ton of valuable content for free. If you guys want to support the channel, you can tap into the links in the description. And if you want to join the order flow Discord, it's free. That's in the description as well. So I'll catch you guys in the next video.